Thank you, Anna. I'm just going to give you a very, very brief context, background, and a short introduction about our project, and then Hannah is going to talk about the lessons we've learned so far. As you know, there are currently more people displaced due to conflict or crisis ever before since Second World War. There are currently 65 million people displaced, of which 11 million have been displaced for more than 5 years. As you can imagine, this has had a tremendous impact on education for a whole age group, from primary education to higher education. And if you think that every year we have 600,000, an addition, more, 600,000 school-age refugees. So you can imagine the lack of provision. And 61% of youngsters are not enrolled in schools. And for higher education, this is even worse. 10% only are enrolled in any sort of higher education provision, compared to an average of, 1%. 1%, I must correct this, only 1% are currently enrolled in higher education provision, compared to 40% on a global average. So you can see numbers here. In Jordan, we have 1.5 million Syrian refugees, of whom 80% are below the poverty line. In Lebanon, we have about 1 million refugees in a population of 6 million. So most of them are not in refugee camps, although these are the images we usually see. And it's time that we all engage in increasing access. We have to do that by being creative, innovative, flexible, and we have to learn and not duplicate efforts. There are a lot of players and people doing really good projects. How can we all work more concertedly together? Here at King's, the community of students, staff, academics, we felt that we had to engage with this displacement problem. And therefore, we created the Sanctuary program, of which this project, PADILEIA, is one of the biggest initiatives, how we are going to address this lack of provision for Syrian refugees. PADILEIA is a project, as Anna said, is funded by DFID. It's a 4.5-year project. We are really in the delivery phase. It's been a little over a year. And the partnership is innovative in itself, I think, because we are 5 partners. It's 3 universities: King's, American University of Beirut in Lebanon, Al Bayt University in Jordan. Chiron is an NGO based in Berlin, and Future Learn, commercial partner, and a good partner of King's for many years now. So what is the idea behind PADILEIA? Is that one size doesn't fit all. And we want to provide, as I like to call, a basket, a menu of options to increase access to higher education. And this can take the shape of a blended foundation certificate program that takes place either on campus at Al Bayt University. So this is very convenient because they are located 15 minutes, it's a 15-minute drive from the biggest refugee camp in Jordan, that's the Tari camp. It has 80,000 refugees there. And they go to specially designed spaces on campus for our foundation certificate programs. Or in Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley, we have built bespoke study hubs. These are innovative, almost like flat packing structures that some of our students, and you, Hannah, was there, and some of our academics helped build in the Bekaa Valley. It can be built very quickly and dismantled very quickly. And those have, the structures themselves have already received a few prizes in design. So there we have, I would like to show you if I can, thank you. So you see here, we just finished our first cohort of blended foundation certificate programs, and this was the graduation ceremonies that we had in May and June. It was a very happy moment. You can see we are all very proud of our students. So this is one side of the project. The other aspects of it, we have Chiron that unbundled, but then concatenated MOOCs that are already out there, provided by Coursera, FutureLearn, edX, and created a concatenated curriculum. They go and sign learning agreements with local universities that recognize this bundled, concatenated curriculum with ECTSs, and then students can learn flexibly on the Chiron platform and then transfer to local or international, universities overseas. That's a very innovative model. And then comes our part here, is the MOOCs that we are developing to provide micro-credentials, but also to provide gaps in academic content. And we carried out needs assessment, interviewing refugees. What would you like to study if you go to university? And it's not going to surprise you that it was education, healthcare, huge interest in English, business, computer science. These are some of the subjects we are considering to develop our MOOCs on. And another big aspect as well is a dedicated work package for stakeholder engagement to try to change the perception in the region of online education, which if we go and interview our refugee students, they tend to see it as, I'm not interested because this is not the same quality as I would have if I went and studied at university. So we need to change that. It's a long journey. We are developing a network of stakeholders interacting with the Ministry of Education in Lebanon and Jordan. We are also working very closely with UNHCR and others. And to finalize, I think what makes us very proud as well is the interest of our students to be mentors, volunteers, buddies, and connect to students in Lebanon and Jordan. When we were at Zatari camp last year, I think the surprise was almost as a course of an opportunity to study at university. What our the youngsters we met there, what they said is that they wanted to be connected to students elsewhere, outside the camp, and they were really excited about the possibility to just chat with students here at King's and understand what is your life like when you're here at university, and also tell them about their own experiences. So now Hannah is going to tell you a little about our own experiences in designing our MOOCs and what we've learned so far. It's a challenge. We have another, I think, 3 years to learn a bit more.
Is this working? Yep, great. Okay. So, PADILEIA is a very big project with lots of different elements to it, different parts to those elements. So I'm just going to focus on one particular area, which was the development of the first 2 English courses. So let's start with the challenges. They're quite big. Firstly, low levels of digital literacy and familiarity with online learning, combined with limited access, means then that this when we say limited access, we mean in terms of access to laptops, we're looking at between 25–30% of refugees having access at all to any kind of laptop or desktop. In terms of access to the internet, it's about 10%. About 10% of refugees have access to fast internet in Lebanon, and it's completely non-existent in refugee camps in Jordan. We also have low levels of English language, and that is a challenge for delivering courses in English, obviously, but it's also one of the biggest barriers stopping refugee students from accessing higher education in the region. So we have to tackle it, even though it's very difficult. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about the user experience, but I think there's 4 key words that we've had in mind throughout the development, and that is adaptable content, flexible courses, supported learners, and really importantly is learner-centered design. So these are, elements of a good user experience that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but I've grouped them into 4 areas that I will concentrate on. The starting point really is purpose and value of the courses. Does the course make sense to the students? Do they understand its purpose? Even more importantly, what is its purpose? That's something that we're still trying to understand, and we will probably be working on throughout the project, is trying to narrow the scope to something that's actually doable for a MOOC. This one's really important as well. Is it flexible and adaptable? Because of the refugees have a lot of competing demands on their time. Many of them have various jobs to bring money in, and many of them have young families as well. And we also have to make sure it's of value to the user. So there's no point developing a course where the English level is too high, even though it's much easier to pitch at a higher level. We have to make sure that it's actually accessible to the students. Okay, so in terms of accessibility, if you just a really quick glance, you can see that there's actually quite a big variation in availability of internet, and also the amount of hours per day that people had access to it. And similarly with devices, there is a fluctuation there in terms of access. So you have to make sure that you are delivering content that is engaging for learners who do have internet access and can access videos, but you also have to make sure that you're not leaving the most disadvantaged students behind. Okay, so here's some pictures of some of the study hubs that Tania mentioned. We've got some here that are in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. This is a temporary school structure in Zatari camp in North Jordan. So one of the things we realised was that it would be really good idea to use the study hubs that our partners have set up to actually provide space, devices and internet access. So we visited these schools and these camps, and it was really important for us to just get a sense of the kind of space that students might be in when they're taking the course. Things like the fact that the students really loved the spaces of the Bekaa Valley hubs. They were warm, the internet access was really good. We worked remotely from them actually when we were out there. The way that the classrooms were set up that enabled lots of interaction between the students. So obviously we wanted to keep that interactive element into the actual courses. We also met with the students. So yeah, I mean, a lot of them struggled with conversational English. That was something that they really, really wanted to work on, but it was something that they really struggled with. So we were thinking there about how on earth we could actually build in conversational practice, pronunciation, listening practice into a MOOC. We understood better time management, scheduling. We talked to the students about how long it took them to get into the study hubs. We got a better sense of the kind of time that they might have to actually take the course. Oh, what have I done? Yeah, we got a better understanding of the ambitions of the students. And basically all these things kind of went into our thinking for the courses. When we came back, we spoke to our subject matter experts at the English Language Centre, thinking about how we could apply these learnings to the courses. I think something that we had to think about was managing expectations. It would have been really good to tell these students that you take these MOOCs and you'll move up a certain language level, but that's not really something that we can really say will happen with one of these courses. So we decided then to concentrate on functional English in terms of kind of grammar, vocabulary that could be useful in every day, but also was linked to higher education, technology, and employment as well. In terms of usability, this is how we structured the course. The English Language Centre, they broke each week up into listening, grammar, and reading. You can see that, I mean, there's more steps than most MOOCs actually, but that's because we have to really break the learning up into really small chunks. And you can see that you've got a quiz followed by an audio, followed by a quiz, followed by a discussion step. So it was just about mixing the activities up, but they're all related and they all make sense. We did find that the students really struggled with navigating their way through even very simple online courses. They used Google Classroom in the foundation certificate, and that set out very much like Facebook, but they still struggled with navigating through that. So yeah, we just had to be very, very careful of making sure everything made sense and that they didn't get confused going backwards and forwards. So we have these icons here that appeared every time they went to a different activity. Also for the quiz steps, we had to make sure that there were links to the audio within the quiz step, just to make sure that people weren't navigating out of the course. So I know many of you had the opportunity to hear from Sam, who was the visual designer for PADILEIA, but I'll just kind of summarise what he was talking about. So we based this around the idea of digital storytelling. Our instructional designer was researching digital storytelling at the time, and we thought it would be a really, really good way of making the course much more engaging, especially without video, and contextualising it as well. So these characters go all the way through the course. They talk about themselves, which is really important because refugees, especially without the English skills, found it very, very difficult to talk about their experiences. And they felt that doing so would really connect them to the outside world. And here's how we try to make it interactive as well. So, for example, a student would listen to a podcast about finding their way in a new town. Then they could follow the directions on the map. They would then answer questions about it. Here we have, if we're talking about students talking to each other, we would actually have it as a WhatsApp conversation rather than just text. And of course, teaching grammar through cats worked really well. Okay, so what did we learn? We learned that there's a lot of stuff we still need to learn. ultimately. At the beginning, I thought this was a good picture. I felt at the beginning that I was possibly in danger of getting stuck here, with lots of possible directions, lots of input from various people pointing us down different paths, and then obviously not being able to move at all. So we ended up having to just go for it and pick a certain direction. But saying that, you have to be, of course, very adaptable then to then change course depending on student feedback. So in terms of assumptions that we had to drop, the thing about refugees wanting to talk about their experiences. We assumed that refugees living in that situation probably wouldn't want to be reminded of it all the time and be given exercises where they have to talk about their families or where they live or where they used to go to school or their ambitions and why they can't follow their dreams. We were told time and time again that that was completely wrong. Students really, really wanted to talk about their experiences and have the language to be able to do that. The other thing is that we brought in, we did some remote mentoring via WhatsApp. We came up with loads of lesson plans to try and structure the WhatsApp conversations and make them as useful as possible. Actually, it didn't work. The thing that worked was when we started talking about food. It was, I don't know why, but it's because you can talk about your family, you can talk about your daily routine, you can talk about your culture through the medium of food. So that's what we'll do in future. We'll talk about food earlier on. It was interesting learning about the terminology that stuck as well with the learners. So MOOCs, they didn't understand that. Programs, even courses, students didn't really understand. So we ended up using the term classes for everything. We also learned what was actually feasible to do in a MOOC. And we learned a lot about teaching at that level. I don't think there's many courses on FutureLearn or elsewhere where you try and teach students in the language that they're learning at A2 level, B1 level. We also found that if you're finding it difficult to communicate to the students the purpose of the course and what you're offering to them, it's probably because it's not clear enough to you. So you need to do some more work there, scoping exactly what you want to offer them. Did it work? We don't know yet. It's very, very early days. So in the first pilot, which just ran over the summer, we were expecting that completion rates would be much higher for learners that were receiving support, whether it was on the ground or remotely. Of course, that happened. We had very high completion rates for people receiving that support. But other than that, what we need to do now is to experiment with lots of different delivery models and work out which elements of that support has the biggest impact on completion rates and student satisfaction, and then start to unpick it a bit to work out which elements of that are then much more scalable and efficient to roll out. Okay, but saying that, we did have 827 learners join from Lebanon and Jordan, and we even had 534 learners that joined from Syria, which was quite a surprise actually. What did the students think of the courses? They really liked them. Here's some quotes actually from the students. I'll just give you a minute to read some of them. And in terms of next steps, we have the English courses running again in the autumn, and then we're going to launch 2 new courses after Christmas. I think going back to what Mark said earlier about you can't do it yourself and it's all about partnerships, collaborating even more with regional stakeholders and experts, and are trying to align it somewhat with regional programming, which is especially important with topics such as nursing and healthcare, which is what we're doing next, because they don't have the same pool of students. They wouldn't be as popular with everyone as an English course. So we just need to make sure that what we're doing aligns to, not just being in the right direction, but aligning to maybe practical skills workshops that are happening in the region, aligning to first-year undergraduate courses in the region as well. Realising the full potential for WhatsApp mentoring and peer support. So that's about also learning more about the relationship between the refugee student and the mentor. And also WhatsApp is quite an incredible resource for language teaching, which I don't think any of us fully appreciated when we started. Voice notes instantly open up the conversation, and immediately you have you can have a voice to someone's name. And the groups really started going when people left voice notes. Also pictures, videos to demonstrate what you're doing. People love sharing pictures of their everyday lives, whether it was just them at work or them with the kids or cooking. It was great. Involving refugee student ambassadors and focus groups. So we've already started to do that, so that the students feel like their feedback is being heard and then applied to the next courses or reruns of the courses, so they feel they've got a stake in what we're doing. We've got some ideas of how we can do that, but mostly I think focus groups and just speaking to the students when we go out there. Experimenting with different support and delivery models. That's part and parcel of offering flexible courses and making them sustainable. When this project is over, we hope that the courses can be used in a variety of different ways. And introducing and testing new interactive elements. So video is a problem with low bandwidth, but we're hoping that we'll test it out and we'll see actually if people can access them, whether it's downloading video, sharing it via WhatsApp, waiting till they come into the study hub to access it. I'm sure there's ways around it.